Hello, this is Aya. I'm a massage therapy student and I'm going to make a video on the lower limbs, primarily on the calf muscles, so right here, as well as the muscles of the foot. I'm going to also say the origins and the insertions, and I'll probably be playing around with this just to kind of figure things out for my own knowledge. It's not necessarily to teach, it's more to just teach myself and then have it somewhere safe, I guess, maybe on a platform, YouTube. But anyways, let's just start. So let's start with, how about the foot muscles? So I'm going to start with the first layer of the foot. Now, as you can see, I noticed that all of these muscles connect to the tuberosity of the calcaneus. Now, let's just start with the most lateral. So right here, abductor digiti minimi. So it originates clearly on the most lateral portion of the calcaneus tuberosity, and then it actually inserts to the lateral side of the base. Oh, it seems like this, yes, the base of the proximal phalanx of the fifth digit. That would be the insertion, but let's double check. Seems like there's extra. Okay, so right here, plantar aponeurosis, that's the origin. Medial and lateral processes. Okay, so it's on both. That makes sense, it's quite large. Plantar aponeurosis. Plantar how do you spell that? Apo. Okay, so plantar aponeurosis. Let's just get rid of that. Okay, well, you kind of have the idea, the origin. And then the lateral aspect of the base of the proximal phalanx of the little toe. Let's go and check the nerves. Okay, so the lateral plantar nerve. Makes sense, it's on the lateral side. Okay. And might as well look at the motions too. So because it's on this side, it would make sense that it would do abduction. You can obviously also see this would be the abductor hallucis, but we'll get back to that in a second. Okay, so you kind of have an idea. Let's start with this one. So now this is the flexor digitorum brevis muscle. It originates on the calcaneal tuberosity of and the plantar aponeurosis of what I just showed earlier. And it inserts, now this is the weird one, I would call it, because it's on both sides and it's on the middle phalanx. I noticed that these two, the abductors, are on just the base of the proximal phalanx, and then this one's just flexor, which makes sense because it's just in the middle, not anywhere on the sides. So it only makes sense that it would be flexing. Now the nerve, sorry, not that one, medial plantar nerve, which also, when you really think about that, let's see that, it's just right in the middle. So what else could it be? Okay, so Again, origin, medial portion of the calcaneus tuberosity, and then inserts to the middle phalanx of the digits 2 to 5. Now let's see what and also there's lateral and medial sides too. Toe flexion. That would make sense. Okay. Now let's go to the, I think this abductor hallucis. There it is, yes. It's always going to be the first toe. So hallucis, oops, here, actually this might be better, originates on the most medial process of the calcaneal tuberosity, but the only difference I noticed about this one, flexor reticulum of the foot and plantar aponeurosis. So it seems that all of these attach to the plantar aponeurosis, and this one only attaches to the flexor reticulum, or sorry, retinaculum. There. Now let's just have a look here. Sometimes it's hard to navigate this thing. There. So I guess it just about touches it, maybe. All right. Good enough. Okay, back to this. Now, yes, the origin is the calcaneal tuberosity, flexor reticulum, plantar aponeurosis, and it inserts into the base of the proximal phalanx of the first digit. Here. Okay, so let's just see what it does in the action. Okay, kind of got the idea. Want to just double check the nerves. Medial plantar nerve. Okay. Medial, medial, lateral. Okay. Now we're going to move on to the second layer. Foot. Now I'm just going to get rid of these because maybe I find them a little bit distracting. There you go. Now this is the second layer, the lumbrical muscles. Now it looks like they're attached to something here. So tendons of the flexor tutorum. Let's type that in. Tendons. Sorry, sometimes this thing freezes. There. Flexor digitorum. Could be the internet. Oh, longus as well. The right one, right there. What is going on? There. Oh my gosh. Of course. Let's try that again. Tendon sheath. Oh, I know what to do. Just do flexor digitorum. There you go. That's a lot easier. Okay, so on the second layer, it appears that both of these have an attachment to the tendon of the flexor digitorum longus. So right here. That's the origin, flexor digitorum longus. That's what makes these quite different, I find. And it inserts to the medial aspect of the extensor of expansion of each toe. So expands to toes, the proximal phalanx 2 to 4, 2 to 5. Okay. And the actions. Now, what this does is that this flexes metatarsophalangeal joint, so right here, and then extends the interphalangeal joints. Now, I believe it's going to be right here, but let's double check. Let's fade everything else. And as you can see, now I wish that there wasn't so many of these. It's kind of hard to see, but do your best. You can see these muscles traveling. Let's get rid of that one at least. There. You can see how it's getting pulled onto the tendons of the flexor digitorum longus. Now that would be going towards here. That makes sense, like that. But we'll get back to that in a bit. Okay, now let's continue. Okay, now we're going to do the quadratus plantae muscle. It originates on two spots, the medial and the lateral aspects of the plantar surface of the calcaneus. So it doesn't seem to be on the tuberosity. Tuberosity is right here, so just underneath. I guess that's the name for it. The insertion is, so the insertion for this one is the actual tendon of the flexor digitorum longus muscle. And it assists in flexion of the second, third, and fourth, and so basically the digits 2 to 4 in flexion, which would make sense. Maybe this pulls onto this muscle, and therefore this muscle is attached and assists with pulling this onto pulling these. So again, origin, quadratus plantae, is on the medial and lateral aspects of the calcaneus, really, plantar surface. Lumbricals, and it inserts to the flexor digitorum longus muscle. And the lumbricals originates on the flexor digitorum muscle tendon and inserts into the medial aspects of the proximal phalanx of the digits 2 to 5. Now let's see what kind of nerve innervates this. Lateral. Okay, so it's lateral nerve. I guess it would only make sense, as you can see, it kind of just curls under. Okay, now let's go see what nerves these are. Deep branch of the lateral plantar nerve. Now, are there, oh, there it is. Okay, so the right here, let's have a look. So number 3, 4, and 5 are the lateral plantar nerve, whereas number 2 is the medial plantar nerve. Okay, so that's the only, this is probably the most different one with the nerves. Just keep that in mind. Now let's just move on to the third layer. get rid of these. And I don't think these attach to that. So now we're on the third layer. I can already tell that this is going to be, just from looking at it, it's going to be flexion, just from the location of where it is. And because this is on the side, it has to do adduction. And this would probably be flexion. So let's double check. Flexor digiti minimi muscle. And origin is on the plantar aspect of the fifth metatarsal. Oops. Okay. So flexor digiti minimi originates on the base of the fifth metatarsal bone, and it just inserts just one over base of the proximal phalanx of the fifth digit. That's flexion. And the nerve that innervates it is going to be the lateral plantar nerve. Now let's start from here. Now this one, transverse head, oblique head. Now the transverse head originates plantar ligaments of the, okay, so let's search that up. Plantar ligaments, metatarsal. Okay, not sure how that connects, but it does apparently. Now the next one is the deep transverse metatarsal ligament. Metatarsal ligament, there. Okay, so to recap, the origin of the transverse head of the adductor hallucis muscle is on the plantar ligaments of the metatarsal phalangeal joint, right there. Metatarsal phalangeal. Oops, what the heck? Right here. And the insertion is on the lateral, oh yes, and also the origins on the deep transverse metatarsal ligament. And the insertion, now we'll get to that in a second. Now the plantar, so the origin of the oblique head is on the plantar aspect of bases of the second and fourth metatarsal bones. Oh, and tendon of fibularis longus muscle. Oh, so I think I'm just going to do that. There it is. That makes sense. Okay. And it inserts to the lateral aspect of the base of the proximal phalanx of the first toe. Now again, this one looks like the flexor, so I guess it has two because of how large the bone is, which would make sense. The origin appears to be, it's on the cuboid and the lateral cuneiform bones. Oh, and tendon of tibialis posterior. That makes sense. We'll see the motions in a bit. Okay. All right, so to recap, flexor digiti minimi originates on the plantar aspect of the base of the fifth metatarsal and inserts to the base of the proximal phalanx of the fifth digit. Nerve, the lateral plantar nerve, and these two, they work hand in hand. Oblique head of adductor hallucis muscle originates on the base of the second to the fourth metatarsal bones, and so right here, 2nd, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. There it is. Now let's just double check here, just in case. Okay, so that's the origin, 2, 3, and 4. as well as the tendon, and then inserts to the lateral side. Now, where was I here? Tendon of the fibularis longus muscle. And right here is the transverse head, originates on these transverse ligaments, as well as, for some reason, plantar ligaments of the metatarsophalangeal joints. And then they both insert to the lateral aspect of the base of the proximal phalanx. Now, the nerve is for both of these. Let's double check. Deep branch of the lateral plantar nerve. Deep branch, so these are both from the lateral plantar nerve. These three, and then here, this would be on the medial plantar nerve because it's on the most medial side. I guess there's a very fine line between medial and lateral nerves. Anyways, you kind of get the point. Flexor hallucis brevis muscle originates on the cuboid and the cuneiform, the most lateral cuneiform bone, and the tendon of tibialis posterior, which is right there. And the insertion is going to be the base of the proximal phalanx. All right, you kind of got an idea. Let's look at some actions. Okay. So as you can tell, there's flexion, but then it's also being pulled from the flexor digitorum longus. Okay. Now this is a flexor digitorum brevis. So I guess they work together. That's the connection I made. But anyways, now let's kind of fade everybody. It's kind of hard to see. It's too bad they do all of that muscles. Now where am I looking here? Anyways, kind of got the gif. Flexor digiti minimi muscle, also flexing. Let's go move on. Now, does this do anything else? Yeah, so they both heads do flexion. Okay. Abduction, or adduction, sorry. For some reason it's not there, but it's there. Okay. Yeah, pretty self-explanatory. The axis is going to be on the second toe. Okay, same thing. All right. I wonder. Interesting. I wonder what. Anyways, I'm sure it'll show eventually. Let's move on. I think it was the third compartment. Sorry, third layer. Was it the third layer of the foot? No, we're already there. Okay, we're on the last layer. That's awesome. Okay, again, I probably should get rid of these just to kind of make things less stressful. Okay, that's a bit better. Okay, so this, my first assumption, let's get rid of that too, I can't see. There. So I'm going to assume that this is the, I guess, a plantar interossei. Yes, it is. Okay. So for my class, I don't really, teacher says I don't need to know right now specifically about the origins and insertion, but just the actions. Sorry, you can read it on the screen here if you want to, pause it. Anyways, okay, so it's flexing. What I noticed, now according to my cards here, let me just get to them. Plantar interossei. Now it does toe flexion at the metatarsal phalangeal joint. So right here, it's flexing metatarsal phalangeal joint, but then it extends. So let's see. Now it's not going to show. Sometimes it doesn't show all the actions, but it extends here at the proximal, and then distal interphalangeal joints. So that's a little strange, but that's kind of how it is. Flexion, metacarpal, sorry, not metacarpal, metatarsal phalangeal, and then extension at the proximal and then distal. Okay, and then it adducts the toes because clearly you can see that because this is the axis, you can see where the attachment is. It's going to be pulling or contracting because of where that is. It's going to be pulling towards this toe here. And the nerve, now let's see here. Superficial branch of the lateral plantar nerve. Deep branch, though. Interesting. That's very interesting. This is the superficial. I wonder why, but maybe it's just closer to the outside, just from the arch of your foot, since the arch up here is going to be higher. So that's just my, I guess, hypothesis at this point in my career, I guess, or my education. So these two are the deep, superficial. Okay, great. Now let's just get rid of these because. Okay, so this looks like it would be the dorsal interossei. Now, because the plantar does adduction, it would only make sense that this dorsal does abduction. But let's have a look here. It's kind of in an awkward view. Let's see if I can look at a better view. Okay. So it obviously does abduction, as you can see about the placements here. It's on this side, so it's going to be pulling it down laterally. Now, so the action, toe abduction. See, it's contracting. And then here, it also does extension of the proximal and the distal as well. And then it does flexion and abduction. And the nerves, let's have a look. Deep, superficial, okay. But relatively, it's the lateral plantar nerve. With this one. Oh, these are all lateral plantars. Okay. Plantar, and then the bottom is plantar. Okay, so that is the foot. Let's get out of this weird angle. So now we're going to do the leg. Oh, wait a second. We got two more that we need to cover. That's the dorsal side. My bad. It's my first video. Okay, so let's try. It's called the intrinsic muscles of the foot, by the way, which means that it's not really getting help from the other muscles, whereas some of the muscles that connected to, digitorum longus is extrinsic. But anyways, let's just dorsal muscles of the foot. Okay. Oh, dorsal interossei. Ha. It's late. Okay, so here is the extensor digitorum brevis muscle. originates on, I guess it looks like kind of like the anterior dorsolateral aspect, but overall it's kind of just on top, and it inserts. Now, inferior extensor reticulum. Okay, so somehow this is an origin. And talocanthal interosseous ligament. Cal. Okay. So, getting back to the extensor digitorum brevis, originates on the dorsolateral side of the calcaneus, the inferior extensor reticulum of the foot, and the talocanthal interosseous ligament, and inserts to the extensor expansions. Now I notice the extensor expansions, the foot, that one. Now I notice that it's technically to the middle and the distal portion of the toes via a dorsal digital expansion into the middle and distal phalanges. Right there. You kind of see how it connects. So these both, I'll get to that one in a second. These both connect to the dorsal digital extensor digital expansion. Now let's check the nerves. That's the deep fibular nerve. This is probably deep, yeah. Okay. And this one is the extensor hallucis because it connects to the big toe. I bet their actions are quite similar, so let's have a look. Oops, that's not what I was looking for. Okay, so as you can see, it's doing extension of the toes at the, let's see here. So for the digitorum, it's doing it at the metatarsophalangeal, as well as the proximal and the distal interphalangeal joints. But then because this one only has two, for the hallucis, it's only going to be at the metatarsophalangeal joint. I guess this would be the metatarsophalangeal joint. Let's see here. I'm just looking at my cards. So that also help, but sometimes information's different. Extensor grade 2. Okay, we won't need to look too far into that. So I think we have a bit of an idea